Hello and welcome to week 11, section 10 of JavaScript CSCI E3. Are there any questions to start off?
In 3B, part 3.
3B part 3.
That's the one with the menus, the dynamic menus, dynamic drop-downs.
Oh yes, yeah, okay.
As far as the data source is concerned, I know we're making that up ourselves. Are there any restrictions, on how the data sources are? And does it have to? Does the back end have to take into account changing dynamically if the data source changes dynamically?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, I think just having a static array of elements is fine.
And we can have multiple arrays. Right? We can have multiple arrays if we want.
Sure, if you want. If you want, you could, go nuts.
No, I meant without going nuts.
Staying sane with multiple arrays? How do you mean?
Make it easier to understand have multiple arrays.
Right. Yeah, I would assume you would have
rather than an embedded array.
2 arrays at least, right? You would have an array for each selection that you're going to change it into-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying to remember. I was looking at this the other day. I think the way I did it is just a couple of arrays.
Okay.
And then swapping between them. That would have been good to do this week. When is 3B due?
Tuesday.
Is it coming up?
Monday.
Yeah, okay.
20.
All right. Let's see. I was going to do form validation today. Is that something that we're okay with? I think so. I had forgotten that the drop-down was part of 3B too. How much else did I forget? I was just looking at these. The week 11 assignments. Take a quick look at 3B, which I actually have to open because it's a zip file, of course. I'm not going to do that because I probably have it all done. I don't want to show that. Darn it. Okay, I'll download a new zip file. Pop it open here. Okay, that should be fine. So this is just this is a, okay. So it is just a form. Good. All right. What I was going to do is form validation, but as an object. So I'm going to treat the form as though it's an object and deal with it in that way, as opposed to just writing the code out all willy-nilly. Usually is a loaded word. It is commonly done this way, yes. Usually, it depends on the person. It probably, because most JavaScript on the web has been written by people who haven't taken a class, haven't done anything. They've just started copying and pasting stuff. So most of the JavaScript you'll see on form validation will probably still be willy-nilly. But this is my recommended way to do it. We'll go with that, because that matters. Where I have a form that encompasses the where I have an object that encompasses the entire form, and then I deal with it that way. So I'll start from nothing. Well, almost nothing. We'll start from the form. I assume we know how to write HTML for form here. I'm just going to do these 4. We can add one too if I have time. And I'll go over regexes also a little bit, but that's kind of a regexes can be very difficult, so very hard to understand. So I just have a field set with a legend, and I put all of the input elements in divs so that they'll be on separate lines. I gave them labels because you should always give input elements labels. The input elements themselves, you'll notice, do not have IDs, they just have names, because that is how they probably should be. Although if in your form you decide to put IDs everywhere, that's fine for 3B. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's just this is a cleaner way to do it, maybe. It's the way I like to do it, and I'm teaching the class, so that's how it works.
So basically, name versus ID are interchangeable as long as you use whatever is declared.
ID is very different than name. IDs, you can only have one on a page. Names, you can have as many as you want.
IDs you can only have one on a page.
You should only have one ID that's, each ID should be unique on a page. If it's not, it can cause problems because you'll be get element by ID and there will be 2 IDs. I think it ends up getting the, I don't know which one it gets, first or second. It gets
Identifiers are interchangeable.
Yeah, as long as you just use unique identifiers, then you can put as many IDs in as you want. But the problem comes when you're inserting your stuff into somebody else's page, and you don't know what IDs they used. So if you have an ID of form, that might cause a problem with their page.
So so you only have one ID, which is my form, but then for names, the same thing couldn't happen then?
Right. You can have as many names as you want.
Of the same. You can
Yeah.
use F name for.
Because it doesn't, there's no get element by name. There's
It elements, right?
possibly.
It turns an array.
Does it?
Yeah, so
Okay.
the other factor there, and I'm a little foggy because I haven't written any PHP in a little while, but if you typically have a server side, you're going to need the name to be the same for all the input all the options, because that's the only way you can get an array out for PHP.
You mean for a select?
Radio buttons are options.
Yeah, for a select for radio button or checkbox. No, radio buttons.
Yeah, no, right.
Yeah,
Checkbox,
just
you
radio
need-
buttons. Yeah.
you need a-
Yeah, radio buttons need to have the same name for each radio element for it to be linked in there. Anyway,
Also for accessibility, for checkboxes, to be grouped together. Shared name.
I'm not sure about that. Maybe. So this is all there is to it. I have a couple of styles over here that are not really important. I just wanted to put some spacing in here and make sure that they were aligned a little bit nicely. And I have an error for later. That's just color red. I have this empty div in here, which is 4 errors, which is underneath the email. So, how do I want to start this? I'll just start with var form. So now I have an object, right? What do you think I need for this object? What should I be passing to this object? do you think I'll need?
I'm sorry, which object, which one are you talking about? This right here?
This object form is going to be a representation, a JavaScript representation of this form. So what should I pass to that new element, that new object, to initialize it? What do you think I'll need to let it know that I'm doing this?
Or was it an array?
The
So
ID.
initialize an array.
The ID of the form, right? Or just the DOM element itself even. Let's say so I'm passing in an object with a form, and I'll immediately set this.form equal to object.form. And if there is no object.form, if I didn't send something, I could say something like document get element by, I want to say tag name. Is that right? Tag name? That's probably right.
It's tagged, so you get it would be, again, I think it's like an array.
Get elements by tag name. Okay. Get elements by tag name. That will return an array, so that's not exactly what we want. We want, let's just say the first.
It'll give you all the forms on the page, right?
Yeah, this would give me all the forms on the page in an array, but I just want the first form on the page, we'll say. We'll say
Document.forms.
what do you mean?
Were we able to use document.forms?
Is it? Document.forms? That's a thing? Like that? Let's see what that is. That is an HTML collection with my, yeah, so I could use that too. I probably want to, the same thing, right? Document dot, it would just be this. So that's even simpler, right? Maybe? This dot form. Yeah, that gets it. That's fun. I learned something. Yay! All right, so we have the form. Now let's. What do we need to do exactly? What do you think we need to do? And when do we do that? On submit. So form. I'm going to set up a quick method here. I will just call in the constructor. This is the constructor. I'm going to call this init one right here, and we're going to say this.form event listener on what? On submit. event. So on submit is called, this submit action is called whenever an input of type submit is pressed within the form. So So when I click this, it should say submitted. Okay. And it's doing this because we're on a JS fiddle, and it doesn't actually want to. It doesn't want us to refresh the page accidentally, which is what this would have done if it were on a regular page. So it's giving us this odd error. What we're going to do is event dot prevent default. So whenever the submit is called, it won't actually try to submit, but it will do this. So on this, what do we want to do? This is form validation. So how do we want to validate this? We want to validate what exactly?
We want to check to make sure there's input in each field, right?
I'm going to create a form validate. So let's validate the first name first. How do we validate a first name? Do we validate a first name? Do we just want to make sure it's there?
That's not blank.
Yeah, not blank. Yeah, I think any name is probably okay, right? Do people have numbers in their names? They might, right? Kesha has a $sign, right? So we have to.
Really?
I think she just changed it though.
Oh, did she remove the $sign?
About 6 months ago, maybe.
Because it would never be valid.
Yeah, she was probably having trouble with form validation. All right, so let's say.
Question about your syntax up top there. The or operator up top, we created.
Oh, this? Yeah.
What is it do?
This, if this is null or nothing, then it'll get this.
So it's the default.
Yeah, it's a default value.
So I saw people start using that. I thought, did I miss that somewhere? 'Cause I mean, it's obvious with me.
You and me both.
But didn't it just appear suddenly and everyone started using it? It's like,
I don't know if everyone started using
Well,
it. It probably
yeah,
did
it's
sort of
using-
randomly appear in Larry's stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess that means either or, right? It's just.
Yeah, this is an or operator, and in this context, it means if this is not defined, basically, then it goes to this. So we're going to validate, and in validate, we're going to call another function called validate fname because we're going to compartmentalize it. So how are we going to validate fname? We don't have fname yet. We never actually set it. So before we validate, in the event listener under submit, we should set it, right? this dot fname equals what? Do we know how to get that? Hmm? I can't hear you. Get element by, no, no, because we don't have an ID on this, remember?
But it should be from that field, but I forget how to do it.
So what we have is the form. So how do we get it from the form? This dot form.
Or no,
Yeah, that's not in the original object. It's not a property of the original object. So
So the whole thing.
So elements is really nice. Elements. Let's
that's a
this form elements. Let's take a look at that quick. Let's do it here.
this is built into the forms object.
Yes, this is part of the DOM. So form elements, you'll see, has, come on,
and would it be less sort of costly to use that as opposed to get element by ID because that would be calling a function? Or is that not true?
what is that?
If we get element by ID here, it would be more costly because we would be calling a function, whereas this is good.
If we get element by ID and we had like an ID equals fname up here,
Yeah.
that, I wouldn't say it's more costly. I would say we already have the data. We already have the data in this object, so we might as well grab it from where we have it.
So then can you treat it like an array and just get this from what elements and then have E0, 1, 2, 3, or does that not work?
So you see the down here. Down here, this is this dot form elements. So elements contains an array or a key value pair where it's got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for each element. Looks like it only grabs field sets and inputs.
Yeah, but if you do it by the number, if you start at 1, you go through 2, 3, 4, 5, you get all the data in the form, right? And just make it into what? Array. You can't do that, right?
What do you mean?
Well, because it's got these, because I know I
Because it's got the
saw
0?
this or read it or something, that you could use those numbers to identify the field, right?
Yeah, I mean, I could loop through the elements array and sort of look for the right one. But you'll notice that email, fname, lname, and phone are already here because a form will automatically add these elements to its elements array if they have names. If I didn't have names on them, I would have to look through each of these inputs and maybe key off of something else that's there. Because they're actually in here twice, you'll notice.
So it wouldn't recognize ID, it specifically has to be named.
Yes, this array specifically requires name. That's why I used name.
So why does it do it twice? Like, why does it have this first number with just the name?
Because you might not have a name declared for these. And if you didn't have the name declared, it would just have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And the fact that you have a name declared doesn't replace the word input.
It doesn't replace it, it adds to it. So in case you had code that keyed off of the name, but you also had code that keyed off of a form if it didn't have names on the fields,
Mm-hmm.
it could do both of those. All right, so that's how we're going to get the elements. So we're just going to do it the old-fashioned way.
You want old-fashioned.
Get each one separately, as opposed to doing something fancy, which you don't need fancy right now. I was doing this earlier and did it in a slightly fancier way. I'll put that code on the web later, but I don't want to waste time doing that. It's not really relevant. Okay, so I've got these values now. I should reduce the size of that. So in the init, in the event listener, as soon as submit is hit, it grabs all of these values, and then it calls validate. And validate calls validate name, validate fname. Validate fname we haven't actually done anything with yet. So how do we want to validate this dot fname?
It's not equal to
If this dot fname does not equal that,
or could you say if this dot fname equals empty string, then you put the word up that says,
and then we can do an error. And let's say, let's keep track of the errors because we don't want to just stop it if we get an error. Let's record the error. So I'm going to create an array called errors. And if fname is equal to nothing, if there's no fname, then this dot errors push error first name required. And so now we have this in, and let's make sure it's not erroring on me. So when we run this, it's going to populate this errors with an error. And let's say in validate, at the end of validate, we maybe not at the end of validate. Maybe here. We'll say if this dot errors dot length is greater than 0. If we have an error, we want to make sure it does not submit the function. So the first thing we would do is we would actually use this.
you're putting prevent default in there, why?
Well, let's say I didn't have this here.
Yeah.
If we hit an error, which we'll know we hit an error if the errors array if the length of the errors array is greater than 0, then we have an error. Then we want to make sure that we do not submit the form. And event.preventDefault will make sure it doesn't submit the form. It takes the event from this listener, from the submit listener, and prevent default prevents it from doing what it would do by default. But we don't ever want it to submit, so that's kind of a, yeah. But if we do have errors, then we want to print them, right? So I actually have a div in there called errors with an ID on it. So, how do we want to do this? Yeah, we iterate over the array. How would we best do that? I have a favorite, but there's like half a dozen ways you could do this with a for in, with a for. I personally, for this case, I think for each works well. Because I feel it's more readable. You kind of know what it's doing for each of the error elements. We're running this function which has an error element, which is the error string that we put into the errors.
No, I'm really confused. What's that error that you've got in there?
This one?
Argument? Yeah,
Or this one?
that's the same thing.
This is the array. Errors is the array.
No, the argument, what is it?
This is the argument for each.
And it's where?
It's going to be available in this function. This
Notice that error doesn't have an S on the argument doesn't have an S.
yes.
And where's the argument coming from? I don't even know what that is.
I'm making it up. I'm making it up right here. It's like I'm defining it. It's as though I'm saying var error almost. So this is a new variable that's available within this function. Yeah. And this function is going to be called for each element of errors. So we could do this the DOM way or the lazy way. What do you want to do? DOM? All right. So let's give each one a div. Document create element.
Do you mean by the lazy way that you mean write the HTML?
By lazy way, I meant, yeah, use enter HTML and just like that, which is really bad practice in general, but it gets it done.
So what was your favorite way?
What?
What was your favorite way? So you had a favorite.
Oh, well, I would say this is the better way to do it, but honestly, if I were just trying to get this done really quickly, I would just throw it in inner HTML. So we have the div. We're going to add text to the div, right? So how do we do that? Append child. And we can't just add the text, right? We can't just add error. We need to append it as a text node, right? So how do we do that? Create text node.
Why would you put each text node in a div as opposed to appending them to the output div? Like creating 3 text nodes and putting them. Is it just because you want them on separate lines?
Yeah. I'm using the div just to separate them. I mean, I could, if I were being really, let me do it the really lazy way, because we all know how to do it the good way, right?
Yeah. No, it's fine there. I really use some of that.
All right, we'll do it both ways. Hold on. I could say div plus error plus /div, right? That's the lazy way to do it. I could.
And why? What's wrong with that? Since it's-
What's wrong with it is that I'm putting HTML tags in the JavaScript, and we want to avoid doing that whenever possible. This would be the same as inner HTML. Well, it wouldn't be the same, but you would get kind of the same effect as. Well, let me just try it. Make sure it actually works before I. So if I submit, it should say.
Because it's inner HTML replaces the whole form.
Where did I mess up? Errors. Property undefined. Where did I mess up? Undefined.
Isn't it, right, output is the big div, you're putting another div inside the big div, but your inner HTML, doesn't it replace the
Well,
whatever's in
whatever is inside the output, which I had is
in
defined
the,
as the error div, which is
in
this
the
div.
HTML, it's different from the microdivide form.
I messed up something somewhere else here. Where did I mess you up? Cannot read property elements of undefined. Oh. Does anybody see what I did? I can't read property elements of undefined. It's saying this form is undefined. I swear I do this like once every
It's a lowercase f.
all the time anyway.
Uppercase f?
No, that's what it is. It's this form.
Constructor is uppercase.
It is this form.
Why
But why does it think that this form is not defined?
Because variable form has uppercase, that doesn't matter, because that's not what that form is that you're using.
No, this is the object. This is the form object.
All right.
This is the DOM object.
All right.
This is the JavaScript object. This is the DOM object. Those are different. So when I'm in this form add event listener, this is a scoping issue, right? Because I'm in this function, and I'm using this inside of an event listener. So the easiest way to deal with that, well, the way I want to deal with that is I want to declare a variable that is equal to this. Then I can take that and use it in here.
I'm not sure why you're doing that.
So this is referring to this. It has a different scope when it's called.
Right.
This is not.
So it's not calling.
I can't use the word "this" when describing this. It's very annoying. Let me hold on. Let me finish doing that real quick. I'll make sure that was what was the problem. Yeah. Okay. So this, in the context of this function here, is referring to the form object. But when we set this add event listener, we give it this function. This function is not executed immediately, right? This function waits to be executed until you hit the submit. So it's not happening in the context of this init function. It's happening some other time. So this, let's say,
So you can say this for this.
I'm not actually sure what this refers to in this context. Let me check it. This in the submit context is referring to the form DOM object. So I could use this, but that would get really confusing, I think, right? More confusing? Is that more confusing?
It's already.
Well, it's
Stuff
because
around
it's the event, right? It's whatever the event is, or what was the target, is that?
It depends on what the, yeah, it does, it kind of depends on what the event is, it depends on what this is, what you're listening on. And it just so happens the submit, oh, no, it depends on this. So this would refer to this. The add event listener, this is going to refer to what you're calling add event listener on. Yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
So, wait a minute, if this is gonna refer to this dot form, I'm not sure why you need that at all, because it should.
Because that .f name is not referring to the DOM object's f name. It's referring to the f name for form. We want f name to be associated with the JavaScript object form. So that we can keep using it in the other functions here. So does that make sense? Oh no. Was that an okay explanation or terrible? Or I think I give myself a 6.
Okay, so basically your closure, so it would be out there, right?
That's closure, that's,
This would be a closure, right? Because we have to, we're using it to establish scope.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, this is a closure because it's a anonymous function.
it calls itself, it's not calling itself.
It's not calling itself, but it is an anonymous function.
So I thought that's what closure was.
It's an anonymous function that we're grabbing sort of the context of where it is. We're able to grab the that and continue using it.
Yeah, I really don't understand that, not making sense to me.
Do you understand what this is?
This should be calling to the form.
This, because we're in form, prototype init, it's going to refer to the specific instance of the form that we've created down here, which is a form object. As soon as we enter into this event listener, as soon as we go into this function here, we leave the context. This function is not executed in the context of this.
Oh, so we're within the function, but as soon as we look at the events, that's the problem. So when the code reads the event listener, it says, I'm gonna wait for the event listener
Yeah.
to execute all this rest of the stuff.
And then when this is executed, we're no longer in this form object. We're no longer in this form object. We're in the form DOM object. So this no longer refers to what it referred to out here.
The form DOM object with a little f.
Yes. It probably would have helped if I used different names for them. But it's too late now.
That's okay. Forget it.
Okay. So maybe a 5. All right, so when I submit this, it should give me. No, it doesn't. Oh, it hates me. Okay. Let's console log, see if we're actually going through this or not.
So this was the lazy way.
Yeah, I know, right? Shame on me.
Does your if statement exclude because it's greater than 0?
I don't think so. It has to be greater than 0. Length has to be greater than. No, the length has to be greater than 0 if this for each is going to go through anything. So
The array is being populated. It's like that is
it is empty. So our validate fname is not working. If this dot fname is nothing,
should it be this is what elements?
well, we
It's
set this
for
dot
capital.
fname to fname up here.
Should it be that?
Come on.
But it's like, no, it's like,
Okay. So it is returning an HTML object. Do you see what I did wrong? Who can spot it first? So this is what it's returning. It's returning the actual DOM element.
Need value.
Yeah. Silly me. There we go.
so if you can make a mistake like that, I feel like there's no hope for me because
Well, did you see how I found the mistake? I mean, that's all. I planned that entirely so that we could.
You,
Just in case we able to figure out what your errors mean.
Yeah.
that would help a lot, I know. I'm working on that.
I mean, I worked it back, right? I put a console log here, then I put a console log here to see what errors was. I saw that errors was empty, so I took a look over here to see why errors wasn't getting this value, and I checked to see what this .fname was, and saw that this .fname was not an actual value. It was the HTML element.
So then why do you not realize what from you wrote that right there? Why did you not realize you had value? Because you wanted to return a value.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking much about it when I was writing this.
So is it just
No, it's not. It's everybody. Everybody makes these mistakes all the time. I hope.
I do.
Okay. So that was the lazy way. Which was held up not because it was the lazy way, but because I had made other mistakes in other places. Create text node.
I get those two mixed up. One's the text node and there's another one there.
And then I also want to set the class name equal to error. And that didn't work. What did I forget to do? I forgot to add it to the actual output. I created this div and I didn't do anything with it. There we go. So, now I could do that. Let's say I don't want to do this with JavaScript because all I'm doing is checking that the f name is there, right? I could do it with HTML by just doing that, adding required. So now when I submit, it gives me a nice little, how do you do? This is kind of limited because it really only, I mean, required only works for that, and then there's another one called pattern, which lets you put in a JavaScript regular expression, but that's also a little limited. Let's do
The other
let's.
thing is support for browser effects.
They're mostly, I think it's good enough. I think it's good enough. So you can just throw some requires in there for the things that are just required. Let's do a validate.
Since our homework, it's required in HTML, but it's supposed to write the JavaScript.
We should write the JavaScript. I mean, yeah, the homework is more complicated than this, right?
I don't know, I was,
Let's do email real quick. I never have as much time as I think I do. Created.
Those people won't show up.
Yeah, I could stay a little late. Form, type. So, how do we validate an email?
So this is the one that you have to put in what's that thing, the backslashes and the space.
A regular expression.
The at sign.
You're escaping
What is it?
you're escaping the special characters.
Escaping, no, it's a call that
It's
can
a regular expression.
regular expression.
So we can do this using test or match. There's two regular expression things. One of them would be like I have a literal regular expression dot test, and I test this dot email. The other one would be this dot email dot match. I always forget if it needs the slashes inside the quotes. I don't think it does. So this email match is going to return an array, and test is going to return a Boolean, a true or false, I think, probably.
So it's our match returns an array of every instance.
If
All one.
Every match.
yeah, every match.
What's the
Sound
zero
one.
to nine? It's looking for characters for those numbers 0 and 9 in the string. It's looking for zero, any number 0 to 9. Or what's the 0 to 9?
The 0 through 9 is it's looking for any number in this dot email. There's multiple ways to write that, but that's not what we actually want to test for. If
So right, test in this particular case, as soon as it finds a match, it's gonna stop. Right, so
So-
that would be the better way to do this in this particular case, right? Because you don't care about the second match anyway.
Right. So I'm going to use \W for word characters. You can look up all sorts of things for this. And then an @ and then what comes after an @?
A dot. But the dot is
Well, the dot doesn't come right after the @, right?
There's another set of characters.
oh, right.
Another set of word characters, and then a dot, and then another set of word characters.
2 to 6
2 to 6.
word characters.
It's
I
gotta
don't
be
care.
2 to 6 with these extensions.
Really? There's no ones? Yeah, I guess not.
But there is something that's like 2 characters.
Yeah,
Is it-
like IO or
D,
AU for
D,
Australia.
But you know what the cool thing is about finding regular expressions for emails is if you look them up, you'll find a different one for every page that you look at, because getting it right, I think, is not as easy as you might think. I think this is okay. This will match us most of the way. If this is true, then we don't care. It's if this is not true, right? So how would we do that? We could be lazy and leave that empty and then put what we want to do there, but we're not going to do that.
Exclamation.
Where do I put the exclamation point?
It's not a parentheses.
Do I need to put 2 sets of parentheses? Okay. Like one open parentheses, bang, close open. Yeah.
So like that, you're saying, and then
You need another one on the end.
We also put carrot on the right end.
you don't think that's too many? I mean, that's the right amount, but you don't feel like that's too many?
You said test it's a Boolean, so what if it's just 0? That would
Oh, maybe you don't need it at all?
right. So test,
Yeah, test is a Boolean, so if it matches it, it'll match true.
right.
Could we also just put if not this right x, like the little hat for the negate the right x?
The little the little hat, which is a carrot. That word doesn't sound any better, does it? Little hat, carrot. Yeah. The carrot only works for a single character. So if I put a carrot here,
Would only be the first.
yeah.
When it's the
And actually, no. That if I did a carrot there, then that would say that's the first. That's the beginning of the thing. A carrot only means not if you're within one of these. So A through Z, but
Not
I don't know. Yeah, not one, but any character. I don't know. So yeah, we need a bang, an exclamation point. We don't actually need the other set of paren. I think it'll work without that, but
at least if it's readable.
it does actually seem more readable. So if that's not true, then what do we do?
Then you put an error, you go into the error, red, push this dot,
Yep.
arrows dot push. And the error is,
Valid email required. Yeah. and you'll notice that I didn't capitalize the words here. So my QA people will pick that up and they'll let me know.
Peer reviewer?
Hmm?
Your peer reviewer?
Yeah, yeah. My code reviewer will notice it, or QA will pick it up down the line, or yeah, somebody will catch it. Don't worry about it. So let's try a valid one first. That seemed to work. Let's make it invalid. Yay! It worked on the first try. Oh. But now it's not working.
Maybe
You know why? I did actually do this one on purpose.
give them the buffer.
You don't need to.
Go for it. My brain is fried, you can say anything.
So it's not resetting, right? So if it's not resetting, then where should it reset? It should probably reset where I'm printing out the errors, right? Maybe? I need to probably move this out.
You have to put it outside of the if, right?
Yeah, keep it out of the if so that I can say before that if happens, I need to just do that. So now if I ASDF at ASDF.ASDF, that's nothing, invalid, boom. If I keep clicking it, we'll make it valid. Okay, so it's,
So now you don't push it every time you lift it.
it's not clearing it though, right?
Yeah, you fixed the first bug, but you haven't fixed the second.
Yeah, I haven't fixed the second bug yet.
Before you push it again?
Yes, clear the array. The array still has 3 valid email requireds in it. So probably want to do that here too.
We want to do it out.
Yes. We want to do it after we actually use it. And not this. We have to use that.
So now, could it be that, because now you're outside of that function, but that doesn't matter. You are.
I'm not outside the function yet. I'm outside of the if statement here. Outside of the function would be down here. ASDF. That's good. And if I keep pressing it, it's still invalid. If I fix it, it clears.
You're getting a new invalid.
Right, yeah, it's still invalid, so that message should remain, right?
So
And
try-
then when I fix
try
it,
fixing it.
then it goes away. All right.
So now, you initialize the array to get to clear it out, but what happens if you don't put in a correct first name, or don't put in a first name? Press submit, you've got 2 errors, they both go to that error array.
Oh, you mean if I put this one back in? Yeah, I took this out. I commented out the validate first name.
Right, so you're going to be validating every field, right? So
Yeah.
now you're creating this array that includes all the error messages. So you clear it out, and then people get the chance to, if the ones that are actually errors will now repopulate.
Yeah, when you try to submit again, it'll repopulate that error
So
array.
you won't just get an invalid, you know, they're all the ones that you haven't fixed the field and then it will clear out, and you'll still get either, it'll leave you alone if you fix anyone, if it doesn't want to fix it.
Yes. So I should get 2 errors here because I don't have a first name and I have an invalid email, right? Yeah. I add that, and now I just have an invalid email. That's actually not very good because no email is different than valid email required. So we probably want to check if we have an email first.
No, do you really need to? Because just
Do you? I mean, that error message is not maybe won't be as clear as email required. Unless it's not required. I mean, it does say valid email. It does say email required.
Email has to be valid.
Then you should put an asterisk by each field.
And I should be indicating. Yes, that's right. Anything that's required needs to be indicated. Yeah. We're out of time. Is there anything else that you want me to do? I'm gonna post what I intended to get to on the video and on the announcement that I made. So you can take a look at that. It's got comments over most of it. And the only thing different I did was I validated a phone. I had some initial values that I put in.
You can post this.
Yeah, I'll post this on the video after I get it after I get the video posted, and then
So the actual fiddle will be on YouTube, or
it'll be a link in YouTube.
in,
So you won't have to like watch the YouTube video and then type in the characters.
But the YouTube will be in Piazza.
Yeah, the YouTube link will be, well, the link to all the YouTube videos is in Piazza. And then in the Canvas announcement that I make for this class, I'll have the link for the video and this fiddle. Yeah. Any questions?
I do have one more question.
Sure.
You might be kind of late, but can you just explain prototype to me?
Can I explain prototype to you?
Like when you're putting prototype in?
Sure. What the prototype does is it links it to a specific I should have stopped recording before I started to answer this. I'm gonna stop recording so I can have a lot of uhs and such.
So you can lie to me.
So I can lie to you, yeah.
Nobody will call you, you guys.